The Florida Gators have kept the momentum rolling with the commitment of Javarii Luckas. You are a Florida Gator.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free reviews of the podcast and on YouTube. And in fact, it might be your second listen of the day, but it is 10:30 in the morning and we've got our second episode of the day because the Florida Gators landed a commitment from offensive tackle Javarii Luckas. And important to note here, Javarii Luckas is related to Fred Taylor, Kelvin Taylor. Kelvin Taylor was involved in the recruiting process. I don't know, how much he was actually involved in the decision, but he came with Javarii Luckas on the official visit to Gainesville. He seemed to be tweeting pretty positively in favor of the Gators. So not sure if that really played into it, but it did also feel like it felt like the Gators were in the lead pretty much the whole time for Javarii Luckas. Once they started pushing, it kind of felt like, all right, well, this is Florida's race to lose here. 6'5", 270-pound offensive tackle. He's a 3-star on 3. He's unranked nationally. He's the 92nd offensive tackle in the country, the 150th player in the state of Florida. We're going to talk about all this. He's a 3-star on 24/7, unranked nationally, 94th offensive tackle, 119th player in the state of Florida. We're going to talk about all this. And he is unranked on ESPN and Rivals. And here's the thing, because I know that there are a lot of people, which, by the way, in the post of who he committed to Florida over, it was Florida over Miami, Penn State, West Virginia. He also had a visit scheduled with South Florida this coming weekend, but like I mentioned a few weeks ago, I think a week ago today. It was a week ago today he announced that he would be committing on June 16th, and pretty much that day, I was like, then I guess it's not South Florida. It's not USF because he's committing before that commitment date. And as always, I would expect that visit to get canceled, which is, again, that's how recruiting's been going this cycle. It's commit, cancel visits. If you're going to reschedule them, but that's just been the way that things have gone. And when we talk about the ranking here, because I think that that's what everybody's going to cling to, because this is one of those cases where, like, you could talk about who has offers out for Javarii Luckas, because it wasn't a lot. It really wasn't. But it was Florida Atlantic, Florida International, USF were the group of 5 schools. The Power 4 programs were Florida, West Virginia, Miami, and Penn State. And so I think that this is one of those rare instances where there's going to be people that don't like the ranking. And the usual rebuttal to ranking complaints is, well, go check the offer sheet. And this also isn't an extensive offer sheet. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of people that complain about the take. I know I had someone tweet at me. I'm not going to say your name because I don't want to put your name out there if you don't want your name out there. But someone tweeted at me and was like, this isn't a good take. Too many projects. I understand that concern. I do. I understand saying that you're taking too many projects in this class, and so that's not a good take and all that. I do. However, I have a couple feelings about this class, and I think that while they're taking maybe more projects than usual, or it might feel like they're taking more projects than usual, I don't think it's a bad thing, because I think they want this to be a pretty damn big class. I think that they want this to be a class where, you could take 6 offensive linemen, or hell, even 7, and say, yeah, these 2 are a project. Because I will say this, I don't view Javarii Carr as a project. I view Javarii Carr as a damn good recruit that is underranked right now. And so I don't view Javarii Carr as much of a project. Actually, first, every high school offensive lineman is a project. But I'm assuming when you say, oh, yeah, the project, you mean someone who's more of a project. But I don't view Janarii Carr as a project, so he's not a project player. Chancellor Campbell, yes, project player in my opinion. Javarii Luckas, yes, project player in my opinion. But here's the thing. They're offensive tackles. I'm fine taking project offensive tackles and letting them just develop and taking a swing at that premium position. And so I'm fine with it. And also, honestly, I hope that, one, we don't know what they're going to look like this fall. We haven't seen them play yet. We don't know how they've developed. And two, we don't know how well they're or what they're being projected to do, right? They could be taking someone as this is going to be our future left tackle. We're going to develop him. This is going to be our future right tackle. This is going to be our future swing tackle. I feel like if you're stargazing or just looking at things like that, then yeah, you probably don't love the take, right? But I think that when you're looking at the actual roster building process, I'm good with it. I understand he's a project player, but here's the thing. You're getting a project player who is generally local kid, has family ties to the university. I think he can play multiple positions. I think that's important as well. 6'5", 270 doesn't rule him out from playing any position other than center for the Florida Gators based on the guys that they've taken on the offensive line there. And so I do think that maybe this is someone where you're taking him in the class and you're just going, well, let's figure out where we can put him. We'll just figure that out later as we go on. But Javarii Luckas, I still think it's a good take, right? He's not going to make your class or break your class. But I think adding a player that can contribute, and especially when you need bodies in the offensive line room, let's be real. Like, we've been complaining about offensive line recruiting for a couple years now, right? I don't think it's something that you could just fix by saying, hey, you know what, we're going to take another 4 or 5. Like, I do think that at some point you've got to take 6 or 7 or hell, even 8 in a class and just get more bodies, more athletic bodies, more SEC bodies in there. Because I do think that some of the takes in the earlier Billy Napier tenure maybe aren't really SEC quality offensive linemen. And so you got to just over recruit those guys. And I think Florida's trying to do that with this 2026 recruiting class. We're going to talk about what might be next for the Florida Gators in the 2026 recruiting class. And we are going to get to the chat, whatever you guys are saying, when we get back with Locked On Gators. There's nothing quite like the NBA playoffs. The intensity, the buzzer beaters, fans losing their minds. It's the kind of atmosphere you got to experience live, right? And this year's matchups are already delivering. If you want in, Game Time makes it fast and easy to get seats, not just for playoff games, but you can go to baseball games, which obviously is quite a ways away from the playoffs. You can go to concerts, stand-up comedy. I'm going next Friday to see John Mulaney, Jon Stewart, and Pete Davidson perform. Gonna be cool there. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On College, and get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account with code Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free, whether it's in the podcast and on YouTube. And we mentioned this on this morning. This is also this morning's episode of Locked On Gators. We mentioned this on the earlier this morning episode of Locked On Gators that I do think the Florida Gators can add 2 commits today. Because I do think that, first off, thought Javarii Luckas was going to be a Gator. Said that for the whole recruiting cycle, really. Again, ever since Florida was like, yeah, you know what? He's someone that we take. Then it's felt like, all right, well, it's Florida's race to lose here. And so Javarii Luckas was always the expected commit. I thought he was going to commit later in the evening. But, I mean, he never really announced the time. He just said June 16th, I'm committing. So I'm assuming you're doing it at school. That probably plays some kind of part in it with scheduling. But then there's also another commit today, which we know is supposed to be early in the day. But I think they said, early afternoon-ish. But there's offensive tackle Tyler Chukium, so another offensive tackle. This one's 6'6", 290 pounds. He's been getting his power forward love lately. Like, that's when his interest has started climbing, really. He's a 4-star on On3, a 3-star on 24/7, unranked on ESPN and Rivals. And all of these sites are still going to have ranking updates come in. I think 24/7's is set for sometime in July to be updated, which is also interesting because that means that while a lot of classes will have their 15 to 20 kids already committed by that July update, maybe rankings could shift dramatically, right? Like without adding any players, but it's just all the ranking updates could rise or fall. So interesting to see how that one's going to shake out. But Tyler Chukium is committing today, deciding between Ole Miss, Cincinnati, and he put Florida State in the Final Four as well. I'm not sure how involved they actually are, but he also did say that academics are an important part of this recruitment. And so anytime a player says that academics are an important part of their recruitment, and if they're being genuine about it, you got to feel pretty good about Florida, right? And like we'll see the cases where kids like, yeah, it's academics for me, and it's Florida, Stanford, and it's like great schools like that clearly academics are important. And so we see that, but there are some where it's not as obvious or as glaringly obvious there. But Tyler Chukium is someone that I do think is going to commit to the Florida Gators later on. That is not me saying that, I have inside information about it because I don't. It's just, I just think he's going to be a Florida Gator when it's all said and done. I think they did a hell of a job this past cycle or this past weekend with the official visit. And I genuinely think they could have done enough to move it along. We got Zach Fink in the chat saying Billy on fire. Q's in here. Billy cooked us some breakfast. We got Wolf in here saying Gator Boy stay high. I'm Ryan Tooper's in here. Gorilla. Okay. I'm looking at all the people in the chat right now, and it's just the Locked On Gators OGs. So I love you. Ryan Tooper said great way to start out the day with some Billy breakfast, and I'm telling you what, you might get lunch, might get brunch, might get something else today as well. Grillo said we in here. We got Swamp Donkey saying LFG. We also have plenty of O-linemen in the ranks to replace the line next year. Yeah, we got the sunglass emojis, but I understand. Again, I understand why people are maybe hesitant or not in love with the take. That's fine. You don't have to. What's up, Duval? You don't have to be in love with the take. Again, you're filling out your roster, and to me, this is a good addition to add someone who I guess can contribute long-term in multiple spots. I think that makes it a good take, that in itself. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. It's someone that you can over-recruit, assuming that you keep climbing up. But we are going to get ready to head out because I'm not saying right now, but I think we're going to have another Florida Gators commit today again. That's just my prediction. I am Brandon Olsen. We will be back whenever we're back with Locked On Gators. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever the podcast and on YouTube. And I'll see you all next time.